Dear colleagues, let me first thank our distinguished host, Prime Minister of Malta, Lawrence Gonzi, a true political leader that we all hold in very high esteem because of his strong statesmanship, his staunch support to the European project, and his very timely initiatives to project European influence on the historical changes taking place in our southern neighborhood. And let me tell you that I'm extremely happy to see Simon Busuttil among us and many other distinguished colleagues or ex-colleagues, but we're always one thing, colleagues from the European Parliament. I'm really very moved and very happy to see you. We all recognize that Malta is perfectly placed to play the role of this influential participation in the historical changes of Europe, given its strong ties with all the countries and cultures, especially in this southern region of Europe. We Greeks share with Malta a common Mediterranean background throughout history, as well as a common geopolitical challenge at our present conjuncture. Now that we are all visiting Malta, I feel we are on a pilgrimage to the heart of a whole region where most of what defines us as Europeans was born. The Mediterranean is more than the sea and the sunshine. It is the focal point that brought people together throughout the centuries, becoming the birthplace of at least 3 civilizations, the values of which have spread all over the world. Now we're at the center of it, in Malta, the most suitable place indeed for this very important discussion. The general title of our meeting today is really intriguing. The answer to that meeting is More Europe. But what is the question? Well, it turns out that whatever the question we ask today, the answer is still more Europe. And this is the idea I would like to elaborate with you. Let's start with the subject. Completing the monetary and economic union towards a European Federation of Nation States, exactly. This seems self-evident to all of us in the PPE, but for some outside this room, it's not as evident. There are some political fractions who want to abolish the nation state. There are others who want to avoid the federation perspective altogether. We are standing in the middle and we want both. Nation state is the basis of our European tradition. It is nation states that shaped up Europe as we know in the last 4 centuries. It is our nation states that became the cradle of modern democracy in the last 2 centuries. If we were to abolish them, we would neglect who we are and we would lose our identity. On the other hand, national conflicts have separated us for centuries. In many instances, national conflicts have unleashed destructive powers among us. So we have to provide a framework within which nation states can converge, national economies can integrate, nation societies can grow beyond their limits, and national cultures can really merge together. This is a political big bang that can unleash the tremendous potential of Europe in the 21st century and can only be achieved in a European federation of nation states. The basic requirements of such an ambitious project are there. Our cultures, defining our identity, are mutually compatible and complementary. We share the same tradition of democratic ideals, Christian values, and Roman law. This is the common historical basis of our cultures. We already have a common cultural denominator. In addition to that, we already have a common political denominator. Our union's flag and our common European institutions, together with our common currency, the euro, already bind us together vis-à-vis the rest of the world. So a European identity is not something that we have to devise and develop from scratch. It's already in the making, a common source of unity and pride for all of us. And this brings us to the next question. What is the next step of our integration. We don't join a union to add up our weaknesses. Instead, we need our union to multiply our strong points, our synergies. Our union should grow more efficient, more flexible, more competitive, more secure, more responsible on the part of each and every member state, and more solidarity-oriented to all member states, especially the ones that need more the help of their partners. More effective means that our prosperity will be enhanced if we stick together much more than what each one of us can achieve by himself. The right common context can make everybody thrive. The absence of any common context could marginalize everyone. More flexible means that we have to respond faster to changing conditions or unforeseen problems. Rules and regulations are indispensable, but bureaucratic rules and over-regulation can harm all of us. We have a lot to learn about how to combine stable rules that are absolutely necessary for our integration with flexibility, which is also indispensable if we are to face new challenges in a competitive world. More competitive means that we have to exploit all of our competitive advantages to win new markets for our products, both at home and abroad. World competition is the name of the game today, and we have only one choice: to fight at all fronts and win it. More secure means that we can jointly protect ourselves much better than each and every one of us can protect himself. Countries like Greece and Malta, being on the European borderline, perhaps understand better than others the common security issues. Security is not only about defending oneself from outside dangers, it is also about promoting stability beyond your borders. Proactive policies of stability can achieve much more if they are jointly pursued on a multilateral level than on one individual level by each member state. More responsible means that common rules are to be respected by all. Otherwise, we will be exporting our individual problems to each other rather than solving them separately so that we can grow together. And more solidarity-oriented means that we have to help each other at times of need, which brings us to the last point I would like to make. As you know, my country, Greece, is currently going through very rough times. We're really going through thick and thin. In 2009, our deficit really exploded. Now, after 3 years of severe austerity, we will bring it down by about 8 percentage points of GDP. Such a correction in only 3 years has been unprecedented. But it came at a very high price. Greece has already lost about 25% of its GDP in the last 3 years. Such a contraction is unprecedented in times of peace. To achieve deficit cutting of about 8% of GDP, we implemented austerity measures adding up to 25% of our GDP. And we just voted last week for additional austerity measures of another 7% of our GDP for the next 2 years. At the end of this program, the deficit will be almost eliminated, prime surpluses will grow up to 4% of GDP. However, Greece will have lost at least 40% of its pre-2009 standards of living. At this point, my country is going through the 5th consecutive year of a recession. Next year is going to be recessionary as well. The economy came close to a full paralysis. Social cohesion has been in serious trouble for a long time, but still the Greek people are demonstrating patience in their ordeal and perseverance in their efforts to get out of the crisis. At truly moments of crisis, we were supported by all our partners, and we appreciate their help. And our partners appreciate and recognize now the sacrifices that have been made by the Greek people. Despite all the hardships, we committed ourselves, and we stand by our commitments, away from populism and extremism and short-term convenience, as the Prime Minister just indicated. We made an agreement, and we are fully implementing it. We're bringing the program back on track, and we're moving forward to meet our targets and get our country out of the crisis. But what is perhaps most important is that we all have learned something out of those dramatic recent years. First, that the monetary union should have a mechanism to avert such crises and a mechanism to resolve them immediately when they start happening. We had neither of those safety valves. Now we're developing both. Secondly, austerity brings recession. And when imposing austerity measures, we must simultaneously try to offset some of its recessionary effects. In other words, encourage recovery right from the beginning. Without a recovery, deficits become persistent, despite austerity, and overall debt explodes. Thirdly, we must also sustain and uphold social cohesion. If we neglect it, we might end up with a self-defeating strategy, because no program can succeed when a society is falling apart. So austerity is necessary and should be complemented with recovery measures, growth-enhancing structural changes, and social cohesion priorities. After all, adjustment programs are not lab experiments. They don't pertain to naked numbers. They are applied to societies of human beings. As far as Greece is concerned, I am now optimistic that we have seen the worst of this crisis, and things will start to improve from now on. We have repackaged the whole program so it can now work. And hopefully from late next year, we will see the first signs of recovery. So we have all grown wiser during this crisis indeed. Greece is a medium-sized country within our union, totaling less than 2.5% of our European GDP. Yet the Greek crisis had very dangerous contagion effects over a much larger range. And the Prime Minister of Malta was absolutely right when indicating this. Now we're trying to reverse, and we're reversing that. A Greek success story from now on will have a much broader positive effect. It will become a European success story. It will prove that the European Union and the Euro are here to stay, that they can resolve their problems, learn from their mistakes, and move ahead. As we all know, success is a trial and error process. Once you are able to survive the mistakes and learn from them. We in Greece are trying to grow out of our debt problem by drastic, believe me, very drastic structural changes, both to our economic model and to our political system. The European institutions are trying to transform the whole common context of our union so that systematic risk is minimized, so that there will be adequate early warning signals to avoid similar crises in the future, as well as adequate tools to face them promptly before they have dramatic repercussions. It is not, I repeat, not a question of whether we want to transfer resources from one member state to another. No country wants to live on borrowed money, because all countries cherish their freedom and dignity above all. It is only a question of sharing a common future and a common framework of cooperation so that we will all be able to unleash our immense potential. At different points of history, different parts of Europe have played a leading role worldwide. Now we are facing the challenge to play a leading role again. Most Europeans understand that this time we can only do this if we're all together. And us in the PPE understand, perhaps better than others, that we need more Europe as a federation of nation-states. So I conclude offering an equation that sums up everything. More political integration, plus more responsibility by each and every one of us, plus more solidarity among us, plus more competitiveness, equals more Europe, more prosperity within its limits, and more world influence beyond its borders. This is the political Big Bang I was referring to before. It's a historical challenge for all of us. It will be the comeback of a stronger Europe, as our founding fathers of an integrated Europe foresaw it, as we owe it to our own children. Mr. President, thank you very much. Believe me, I love being in Malta. Thank you very much.